Hoth, did your 3D rocket company make it to space? I saw they had a nice little lift off there.
Thank you, Jason. I just wanted to give a shout out. This is like, while all this chaos is happening in the world, it's amazing to see pretty incredible engineering. So last night, we did have a successful launch. So Relativity has a 85% 3D printed rocket, which over time we want to try to get to 95%, but it's the fuselage, it's the engines. It brings the cost of space flight down by an order of magnitude. It is a hugely disruptive idea. And so what they tried to prove was that they could get this thing into space. And they accomplished a lot of goals. They got past max Q, which is sort of the point at which the atmospheric pressure is the strongest on the fuselage. So we proved structural integrity. We got to main engine cutoff. We had stage 2 separation. So a lot of really important technical milestones were achieved. It allows them now to unlock a bunch of contracts that allow us, frankly, just to keep going and building. There's still a lot of work to do from here. We're building now the next generation rocket, which is called Terran R, and rocket engines, which can take, instead of 1,500 kilograms, about 20,000 kilos. So enormously proud to have been around this journey. My partner, Jay, has been really the key person on it. But I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Tim Ellis and the team at Relativity. It's super, super, super cool what they pulled off.
It's just amazing how access to space is being democratized and the prices are being lowered so dramatically. What's the impact that's going to have ultimately, Friedberg, you think, on humanity? I mean, obviously going to Mars is this incredible feat technologically and just mind-blowing. But what do you think the net result of all this space activity is going to be for the human condition and the species?
I mean, I think there's a vibrant community of startups and money coming into this space right now. I do think all these guys are going to have to, in order to gain wider spread capital markets attention, like Elon has had to do with SpaceX, they're going to have to find business models that have kind of near-term viability that don't depend on government contracts.
Like Starlink.
Like Starlink, yeah. And so I think that's the key question. It obviously, these are very capital-intensive businesses. They have very long horizons to hit their milestones. So there's certainly capital available in the early stages to make bets on whether or not they can get these milestones. But you know, the broader kind of attention in capital markets is going to come from these things building real kind of businesses that generate value for consumers and markets. You know, one of the things that I think can unlock opportunity for this market overall is low-cost energy. You know, if we can get below, call it 1 cent to 3 cents kilowatt hour of power, call it 1 cent a kilowatt hour of power. I forgot the exact relationship. You can get very cheap, hydrogen and oxygen fuel sources. And so, you know, it's funny if you actually play out the scale factor for space, for the space industry, much of it at scale will get driven by the cost of electricity. So it's another reason why there's going to be, I think, a pretty tight coupling between the cost of power and ultimately the vibrancy of this market.
You mentioned something important. The other key thing that we proved was that this is a pure methalox engine, so CH4 and liquid oxygen. And it was not just stage 1, but also stage 2, which is unique. The only other folks that have tried to prove that you could have multi-stage methalox is China, and their most recent launch failed. But it highly simplifies the engineering problem at hand, especially the ground operations and whatnot, and sort of like filling these rockets and making them viable. So that was another really big milestone.
So the producing of that fuel, Friedberg, requires energy. If that energy was cheap, it would be cheaper to make and process that fuel?
That's right. Yeah, there's a pretty direct tie-in, particularly with scale manufacturing, on fuel that would be used in these rocket systems and power prices here on Earth. So if and as we get power prices down, either through scaled renewables or ideally fusion or some other kind of new technology.
Or nuclear, yeah.
Yeah, or nuclear fission or something, then the cost of fuel and the cost of these space programs goes down. And that ultimately, I think the real question everyone asks is, how do you get away from it just being government services businesses, which have a low multiple in markets and obviously high dependency on one or two key customers? And how do you actually get private market products moving? So tourism obviously makes a lot of sense. travel, around the Earth in 20 minutes or something, or, some people have talked about mining or colonies and, who would fund that, real estate. It's unclear right now what the ultimate
Earth traveling is a wild one.
Yeah.
I've talked to Elon about that, but the idea that you could have a rocket ship take off from Texas and then be in Tokyo,
like
X
half an
number
hour
of minutes later is
I can
wild.
only speak for myself, but I would really like to visit Uranus, Freeburg.